lotus essence was an extremely rare high-grade alchemy ingredient. This kind of rare ingredient grew in the same climate and area that the yellow lotus essence grew in. Due to this, someone unfamiliar with the subtle differences would struggle to tell the two apart. Had Lau not urged Xavier to listen to his intuition, a novice like Xavier would have most likely overlooked this item. There was not much that gave an indicator that it was a rare alchemy ingredient. Blood lotus essence was also a key ingredient for creating the blood lotus essence pill, as the name already indicates. It might be important to mention that there was a reason this blood lotus essence pill was of high interest for Xavier. This reason was the flame mantra Q method. To make the flame mantra evolve, one had to consume a heavenly flame, and then absorb and refine it. However, this was very unsafe. A heavenly flame was high in dark and violent energies. Even the most enduring of metals could not withstand the high temperature of the heavenly flames. Now you can imagine what such a flame would do to one fragile human body. Therefore, to consume a heavenly flame without dying, one had to prepare a lot of things in advance. The blood lotus essence was one of those things that had to be prepared. The effects of this pill were unique. Once consumed, a strange layer will grow on the surface of the person, like an additional layer of flesh and meat. This bloody layer of flesh could withstand high heat. Only with this fireproof layer, it was possible to get close to a heavenly flame and search for a way to undertake the next step. Xavier was looking for all the necessary items that Lau listed for him within Wutan City, but it was to no avail. He did not expect to find such a rare item within the first week of traveling outside the city. It took him a lot of effort to hide his happiness. He played around with the item, trying to appear careless. "Yeah, it's not too bad. I think it will do. Are there any more of these things in the store?" The shop assistant was stunned. He took another close look at Xavier. For a moment, he seemed to get suspicious, but he must have changed his mind because he cleared his throat and said, "Of course, please wait for a moment. I will check in our storage room." Xavier nodded. He forced his eyes away from the rare blood lotus essence in his hand. If he would have been too focused on it, he would have drawn unnecessary attention. Instead, he looked around on the countertop as if nothing had happened. As the shop assistant returned, he placed a large wooden box on the countertop. With a smile, he said, "There are about 50 yellow lotus essences here. Do you intend to buy all of them?" Xavier looked at the boy. Carefully, he inspected all the items. A moment later, he was disappointed to find that there was no second blood lotus essence amongst them. He did not reveal his intentions, so he grabbed a few random yellow lotus essences and turned to the shop assistant. "Please help me to bag them for my trip and let me know how much I have to pay you." The shop assistant calculated the pieces. That would be a total of 2,400 gold coins. Xavier handed the shop assistant his card. As he swiped it through the register, Xavier asked, "Are those ingredients from the mountain range?" The shop assistant hummed. "Yes, the mountain range is full of herbs and other ingredients that are used by alchemists and doctors. Our shop has its own team to gather ingredients. Each time we spend large amounts of money to hire mercenaries as guards, the mountain range can be treacherous." Xavier thanked the shop assistant and put the ingredients into his storage ring. He was ready to leave when he noticed a sudden commotion at the entrance of the shop. A crowd of people were standing around, pushing each other to get a better view. "Wow, it is really her. Can you believe that? The legendary fairy doctor." Someone gasped in awe. Other men were drooling. "Not only brilliant, but also beautiful. I had no idea. Just look at those." "Idiot, do you have a death wish?" Another man smacked the first one that inappropriately stared at her. "She saved more than half of the mercenaries in this town. If someone heard you being so disrespectful, they'll shred you apart. I was just messing around." The man laughed and turned red. Now the others were staring at him with intimidating glares. The atmosphere grew tense. With an embarrassed expression, he hurried out of the shop. Xavier raised an eyebrow. "Fairy doctor?" Standing at a distance, he stretched himself to look over the crowd of people. He only caught a brief glimpse of a female figure in a white dress, but Xavier was patient and intrigued enough to wait until the majority of the crowd dispersed. Once most of the people were gone, he could see the lady clearly. She was not as beautiful as Sunny, but there was a certain charm in her aura. Her light smile increased that charm. Her narrow waist was bound with a green belt, and indeed, she did look like a fairy, with glowing skin and a somehow frail appearance. "Who is that?" Xavier turned to the shop assistant next to him. "The fairy doctor is a physician that was hired by our shop. She is very popular in our city. It is fun to work with her. Whenever the mercenaries know that she will accompany us for a trip, they lower their wages to the minimum. Sometimes they fight each other for available positions." The shop assistant chuckled and shook his head. "A physician?" Xavier was confused. "Isn't she an alchemist?" Seeing how popular she was, Xavier imagined her to be an alchemist. After all, physicians were much inferior to alchemists. They could not really refine medicine. They could only mix herbs and potions to create some sort of healing medicine. This medicine would be enough to prevent someone from dying, but it had a much lower effect and much lower abilities. Only an alchemist could refine medicine to an extent that it had special abilities, like with the Q-gathering powder, or the blood lotus essence pill, for example. Also, physicians had no access to the fire that was needed to refine medicine. All they could use was a normal fire. Thus, every physician desired to become an alchemist, but not many were able to do so, even though many spent their entire lives trying. The shop assistant shrugged. If it would be so easy to become an alchemist, they would not be so rare. Xavier pretended to agree. He continued to stare at the lady in the white dress. She sat down in her seat in a corner, and many people queued up in front of her. One by one, she treated their wounds. On her lips was a gentle smile, and she took care to be as considerate and kind as possible, no matter the patient. Xavier understood why they must have liked her. These fierce mercenaries were acting like docile sheep when they were close to her. Xavier kept watching for a while before walking out of the shop. By now it was night. He continued walking down the road until he reached an inn. It did not look fancy, but Xavier did not expect anything else. The city was ancient, therefore everything looked old and worn down. Many houses appeared to be abandoned. Their windows were smashed in, and the doors were wide open, moving only at the occasional gust of wind. Xavier imagined that the mercenaries, more often than not, would never return home, leaving their houses open for plunderers and vagabonds. The city reminded him of the time he was homeless in America, though at least it was somewhat cleaner here, and the air was a lot fresher too, despite the scorching heat throughout the day. Though at night, it cooled down rapidly. Xavier was glad once he walked through the door of the inn. He was greeted by a bartender across the counter. Some gloomy-looking mercenaries stared at him. Many of them laughed as they saw Xavier enter. "Are you lost, kid? They don't serve milk here." Xavier ignored any comments of this nature and walked up to the bartender. "Do you have a free room?" The bartender nodded. He pulled out a key. 100 gold a night." "Sounds great. I'll stay for a night." Xavier paid the man and made his way to the room. Inside, he found himself pleasantly surprised. The room was kept clean, with a large bed and a desk across it. There was also a large chest for storage at the end of the bed. Xavier did not pay much attention to the chest, or the desk though. He immediately let himself fall onto the bed. Loudly, he groaned and cursed. "Lau, can I not take this weight off in bed for sleeping?" "You're not supposed to take it off, you lazy brat." The old man was clearly displeased. He did not manifest himself, but if he had done so, he would have rolled his eyes. "Please, Lau, I can't sleep like this. I need a good night of rest. Just one night, please." Xavier did not care how desperate his begging must have sounded. He was too exhausted. Lau grudgingly gave in. Immediately, as he took the weight off his sore shoulders, Xavier let out a deep breath. Like a river of water, his Q-combat energy swiftly flew through the energy pathways of his body. Every pore of his body opened. He almost cried out with happiness as his strength returned. With a flick of his fingers, he removed a white elegant box from his storage ring, in which he placed the blood lotus essence carefully into. He did not show the yellow lotus essence the same gentleness. Randomly, he threw them into the storage ring. "Now all that I am missing are the ice fire spirit grass and a level 4 ice attribute monster heart. Once I have those things, I can refine the blood lotus essence pill." Man, looks like I will be busy for a while. Maybe I should be happy about this, though. Consuming the heavenly flame won't be an easy task either. Can't say I'm looking forward to it. Xavier licked over his dry lips with his tongue. But that's a problem for a later day. I need to get some rest. Slipped quietly by. Punctually aligned with the rising sun, Xavier opened his eyes. Living in the wild tuned his internal clock perfectly. He did not expect that. After a few days, his internal clock worked better than any alarm. After a night of deep sleep, his remaining exhaustion had vanished and was replaced with newfound vigor. It took him a few moments to remember where he was. At first, he thought he was back in his old room at the Shao clan. Only as he saw the old desk and the worn-out carpet did he remember. Oh, I'm at the inn. Never thought that a cheap bed at an inn would feel as comfortable as my bed at home. He sat up on the bed and crossed his legs. The early morning hours were the best time of the day to practice his Q energy, and if he neglected to train his Q energy, he would fall behind. It was like rowing a boat against the stream. Only by persevering, one could stay ahead. Xavier focused on his breath. The air around him emitted a continuous stream of Q energy. After the previous day of intense training, his body was absorbing it like a sponge. The energy rushed through his pores into his blood. There, it was refined and slowly deposited into a small Q cyclone within him. He continued this for an hour. Only as the room was completely lit by the sun did he stop and open his eyes. A pale yellow light flashed up in them. At this rate, I might reach the next level in half a year. This tough training is very efficient. Xavier yawned and stretched himself as he stood up. He took a shower and walked back to the bed, staring at the heavy rock he was forced to carry that was lying on the ground next to it. Bending his legs slightly, Xavier let out a deep breath and grasped the hilt of the sword-like rock. Get off already! With his Q energy revolving around his arms, they should have been strong enough to chop down a large tree. Yet due to the rock's effect, his strength was barely enough to lift the colossal item off the ground. Xavier bent forward, his face red and his breathing heavy. With a low cry, he finally heaved the monument onto his back. His knees caved in, but Xavier was prepared. He clenched his teeth and a moment later straightened up. Man, that shit is heavy. Terrifying. Xavier brushed off the cold sweat from his forehead. And I'm supposed to enter the mountain range of monsters with this on my back? I'm going to be dead within the first 5 minutes. Unless you intend to help me out here. Xavier's request was met with laughter, much to Xavier's annoyance. What's so funny, old man? You said you would help me on my journey. I am helping you, by training you. Speaking of which, how come you haven't thanked me for this? Lao said as nonchalantly as always. Wait, so you are not going to help me at all while I'm wandering through the mountain range? How am I supposed to survive? At my current level, I won't be able to kill a baby monster. What am I supposed to do? Xavier's frustration grew, and the heavy item on his back did not make it any better. I will only intervene during your adventure if you are in a situation that is life-threatening. Everything else is something you must deal with on your own. I'm not your babysitter, brat. I'm not sure what you expected. But I can't enter the mountain range on my own if I want to survive at least. Xavier groaned loudly. Don't tell me. You're saying I need to join a mercenary group, right? Lao scoffed. I'm not telling you to do anything. That is your call to make. Xavier rolled his eyes. Before he replied, he thought to himself on the way outside. Once he left the inn, he swallowed. All right, fine. I will make sure to join a group of mercenaries to enter the mountain range. As he reached the end of the street, Xavier arrived near the exit of the town. The road here led to the mountain range of monsters. Many mercenaries already gathered. Voices were crying out. The mercenaries were divided into 3 categories. The first ones were working for a mercenary company. They followed strict rules. There were only 3 such mercenary companies within the town of beasts. They had about 100 members each. Most of their members were at least a young master, and the leader of each group was a she-master. Those groups were amongst the strongest forces in the town of beasts. The second category was comprised of last-minute teams. Once they completed a mission, their team would be disbanded. Unlike the formal mercenary groups, They usually struggled to cooperate and trust in each other's abilities, since they hardly knew each other. The third type of mercenaries were solo mercenaries. Often they had some hidden tricks up their sleeves. The mercenaries shouting at the entrance to the town currently belonged to the second category. Xavier decided to stand at the side and observe what was going on. He thoroughly inspected them before deciding what group he wanted to join. Any negligence in the mountain range could be deadly. Lau was right, as he said that Xavier never seems to run out of good luck. Just as he was wondering which group to join, an excited voice could be heard. The Medicine Palace will enter the mountain range to gather ingredients. The fairy doctor will accompany them. For any mercenaries that are level 2 young masters and above, hurry up if you wish to join. There are only 50 open slots. The shouting and crying stopped. Anyone who met the criteria stormed towards the middle-aged man from the Medicine Palace who was responsible for the recruitment. Xavier blinked in surprise. After processing what he had just witnessed, he also rushed towards the growing crowd. With so many people forming a group, most beasts would not dare to attack them. Monsters were not stupid. They could calculate risks just as well as people could, if not even better. Going with a large group of 50 men did increase their chances of survival drastically. Xavier squeezed his body through the crowd and reached the front. The middle-aged man smiled and waved a scroll in his hand. There is still one more spot left. Only one left? Wow, the fairy doctor really makes those people go wild. Xavier murmured to himself before calling out, I want to join. Huh? The middle-aged man froze. He looked in front of him at the teenage boy and laughed. Little boy, our minimum criteria is level 2 young master. Do you understand? The mercenaries behind Xavier also joined the mocking laughter. Someone called out, Whose child is this? Another mercenary bellowed, Move aside, kid. Don't waste our time. Xavier ignored the teasing and took 2 steps forward. Close to him was a tree, about as thick as an elephant's leg. He tightened his fist, and pale yellow energy formed a thick layer around it. Ugh! Is this good enough? The middle-aged man nodded with amazement. You are talented, kid, not gonna lie. The last spot is yours. The pay is 500 gold coins. I will pay you half of it now, and the other, if you return. Great, thanks. Xavier had little to no interest in the money. What he was interested in was the experience, and finding a safe place to continue his training in the mountain range. The surrounding mercenaries dispersed under a lot of cursing and sulking. Having their chance of joining the fairy doctor taken away by some boy did not sit right with them. Xavier did not pay them any mind. He was beaming with joy. Only moments later, making their way through the quiet forest. Numerous cautious eyes scanned all the dark hidden spots. Xavier did his best to find a pattern of where they looked the most, and which place seemed to offer the best hiding spots. They were experienced veterans that had survived the mountain range for many years. Even though many of them worked with each other for the first time, they were able to hold mutual respect and understanding. When they exchanged brief looks, they could tell what intentions the other party had. The heavy weight on Xavier's back made him struggle to keep up. Each time his feet landed on the ground, he would sink into the soil. After traveling a short distance, he was already out of breath and sweaty. Much to his embarrassment, he whipped the sweat off his forehead and looked over the other people. Suddenly, his eyes landed on the lady in white at the center. She looked like the moon as she straightened herself up, lightly gasping for air. Witnessing this, the surrounding mercenaries considered offering to carry her, though they knew she would reject such an offer. One young, handsome man did not seem to know this, though. He walked up to her with a friendly smile and whispered something into her ear. After a brief conversation, the fairy doctor shook her head, and the young man moved back before calling out, Members of the Wolfheads, we are about to enter the mountain range. Don't screw this up. Yes, young master, echoed the reply back. Many of the voices sounded unhappy. Damn this brat. He's only so cocky because his father is the chief of the Wolfheads. Does he think this will help him to win the fairy doctor's heart? One of the mercenaries near Xavier cursed the young man. Xavier, who overheard this, took a closer look at the young man. On his chest was a badge. It resembled the head of a wolf, with a single eye. Xavier saw around 20 to 30 other people who were wearing the badge with the wolf on it. The wolf heads must have been one of those mercenary companies he had heard about. Seeing the extent of protection they provided made it obvious that they were hired by the medicine palace to accompany and guard them. Xavier also noticed that they were a lot closer to the fairy doctor and the other members of the medicine palace. They must have a lot of trust in this group to let them act as their personal bodyguards. For a few minutes, everything was quiet. The mercenaries were not much for chatting. Not that Xavier was going to complain about that. But as soon as they walked further upwards into the mountain range, they encountered their first monsters. "What are those monsters?" Xavier murmured quietly. He had never seen something like them before. If he had to compare them with an animal, he would have compared them with snakes. They were hanging from 3 tree branches. With lightning speed, they attacked the mercenaries. Many were caught off guard. 3 men turned pale and collapsed. Lau hummed inside his mind. "Those look like 3 level 1 monsters called scarlet ice snakes. They appear a lot in this area. Within them is an ice poison, stemming from their ice attribute. If one is not getting treatment within half a day after being bitten and poisoned, the poison would cause the blood within a victim's body to freeze, resulting ultimately in death." "So what you were saying is I should not get bitten. Got it." Xavier took a mental note to stay clear of those things. To Xavier's convenience, he did not have to join the group fighting. He sat back and observed from a safe distance, at least for now. It was his first time encountering monsters after all. Everyone else immediately attacked. Not even a minute later, the 3 beasts were dead. 2 of the mercenaries went with a member from the medicine palace to the bodies, inspecting them. To their disappointment, there were no monster hearts to be found. It was common for mercenaries to not find any treasure or rare ingredient despite the high stakes involved. The chance of finding something really valuable was rare, though the chance still existed. Therefore, finding a once-in-a-lifetime treasure was something that the mercenaries did not mind risking their lives for. The 3 mercenaries who got poisoned were rushed back to the fairy doctor. She herself removed the poison from their bodies with the medicine she prepared beforehand. This wasn't her first trip. She knew what to expect, and how much medicine was a reasonable amount to prepare in advance. After this attack, the mercenary group stayed even more alert. Nevertheless, it was impossible to avoid all the monsters in the area. The mountain range of monsters had earned its name for a reason. During the next mile, they were attacked by 3 more groups of monsters. Luckily, the mercenaries largely outnumbered them. Each attack was repelled with hardly any effort. Only a handful of mercenaries suffered minor injuries. While Xavier skipped out on the first fight, he could not do so on the ones afterwards. One of the monsters flew up to Xavier and bit his hand. If it would not have been for the heavy weight on his back, he would have managed to kill it. All he could do was watch the monster fly away after fighting it off. Despite this, the mercenaries around him gave him approving nods and pats on his shoulders. "You are quite tough, kid. Holding your ground against a snake-tailed leopard is impressive. They are known for their strength. You will grow up to be a strong warrior in the future, I can tell." Their former doubtful attitude towards Xavier changed in an instant. Xavier was not surprised by this. He knew how this world worked by now. More or less, in this world, where someone's strength determined one's status, as long as someone was strong, they will be respected and even feared. This was a simple rule that Xavier clearly understood. With a smile, he followed the group, advancing towards the area where they would gather various herbs for medicine. "Everyone, we are close to the field of herbs. I can only imagine how tired everyone must be after walking for so long and fighting so bravely. Please, take a short rest." A gentle and clear voice called out. Xavier looked at the lady dressed in white. Something about her was soothing. Again, these brutish mercenaries turned into soft lambs as she spoke. During the break, they held a short discussion. 10 mercenaries decided to scatter out in the surrounding area to act as scouts and raise alerts if there would be more monsters. The remaining people continued with their short but very much needed rest. Xavier sat on the ground, with his back facing the group. He needed the break to continue his training. He flicked his finger, and a small strength recovery pill appeared in his palm. He swept his eyes around the area. As he was sure no one else was looking at him, he quickly swallowed the pill. He leaned against the tree behind him and closed his eyes. Instantly, the pill began to nourish his exhausted muscles. The depleted Q energy in his body was replaced. Before any of the others could recover half of their strength, Xavier was back again in his peak condition. Man, I would be screwed without these pills. He stood up and excused himself to go and pee. Slowly, he walked to a densely forested area near him. There, he looked around for a suitable training spot. The scouts were nearby, so he was unconcerned about being attacked by a monster. Xavier moved deeper and deeper into the forest. The light became less and less. It was hard for the sun to shine through the layers of branches and leaves atop the trees. After walking for a few minutes, the light came back on as Xavier found himself at the edge of the forest. Behind the leaves in front of him, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the leaves and flowers like a curtain. He moved some of the branches and leaves aside to see that in front of him was a cliff. Above him was a clear blue sky. Beneath the cliff were bushes, fields of grass and flowers, and more trees. The air was so crisp and clear that Xavier could see ahead for miles. Not a single cloud was in the sky. Somewhere behind the trees were more mountains. The giant waterfall ran down one of those mountains. Its water was clearer than the sky, almost glowing. He could see all sorts of exotic birds and flying beasts. It was beautiful. The scenery was a nice exchange for the one in the forest. He rubbed his nose. Slowly, he moved along the edge of the cliff. A few feet away from him, he saw white flowers blooming. Instinctively, he was drawn to them. He inspected them carefully and bent down. There, hidden beneath the flowers, was a crimson fruit. It emitted a sweet smell. Xavier stretched out his hand to pick it up. As his hand came into contact with the fruit, a pale hand stretched out, reaching towards the same fruit. After realizing Xavier was there, the hand withdrew with lightning speed. A moment later, the face of a young, gentle lady looked up at Xavier from beneath the cliff. Xavier was dumbfounded. He cleared his throat, trying to hide his shock as he recognized that the lady was the fairy doctor. "Could you please pull me up?" She broke the awkward tension with her gentle voice. Xavier nodded. He grabbed her soft hand and pulled her up from below the cliff. "Thank you." She leaped onto the ground again and let go of Xavier's hand. Softly, she brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear as she flustered. "You were the fairy doctor, right?" Xavier knew the answer to this, but was unsure what else to start a conversation with. "Yes." She knitted her eyebrows together. Looking around, the fairy doctor appeared so gentle and fragile. Xavier instinctively felt the desire to protect her from any harm. He began to understand why the mercenaries acted in the manner they did. She clearly was waiting for Xavier to leave, but he did not take the hint. Or maybe he did and just did not care. The fairy doctor sighed. It seems that you have intended to pick up this fruit. Do you know what it is?" Xavier nodded and smiled. "It is a white orchard fruit, a middle-grade medicine herb that usually grows near cliffs. There are a lot of them. They are still considered to be rare since they are the favorite food of many bird monsters. Many of the fruit will be eaten before they can fully mature. If this matured white orchard fruit were to be sold at a pharmacy, it should be worth around 4,000 gold coins." The fairy doctor's eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know so much? Do you know how to differentiate all medical herbs?" Xavier shrugged his shoulders. He did not want to brag, considering himself still a novice. "I have read some stuff about it. Can't say I'm an expert." "Either way, you have found it first. I won't steal it from you." Before Xavier could interject, the fairy doctor picked up the fruit and handed it to Xavier. This fruit was rare and precious, but Xavier did not have it on his list of needed ingredients, so he did not really care for it. He still accepted the fruit with thanks and a smile, not wanting to be rude. The fairy doctor lightened up with joy. "No worries. I'm always glad to meet other people who share my interests. We should head back to the group now. Otherwise, they might leave without us." Xavier raised an eyebrow. There was something suspicious in her behavior, and he could not help but wonder why. "She's in such a hurry. That's weird," Xavier thought to himself. He narrowed his eyes. The fairy doctor was acting a bit off, and he could not help but wonder why. Suspicion grew as the doctor brushed some dust and dirt off her white dress. The doctor froze. Her red cheeks turned pale. No reason. Some plants were growing on the side. I wanted to take a closer look, that's all. Nothing special. We should go back now. Fair enough. The arguing made enough sense for Xavier to turn around, wanting to lead her back to the others, but Lau's voice echoed through his mind. You idiot, she's lying. There is something below the cliff. Xavier sighed. To be honest, he suspected as much, but did not feel the need to get involved. He took a step closer to the cliff and bent over it to see what he was missing. All sorts of broken rocks and strange branches grew from it. After a moment, he saw a hidden spot. The strange wooden branches growing around it were arranged in a way that made Xavier realize something was off. What is that? Xavier stepped backwards. Suddenly, white dust was blown into his face. He reached up to brush it out of his eyes. His vision became blurry. As he looked at his hands, they were covered with white dust, too. He looked at the doctor, but was unable to speak. His knees gave in, and he fell onto the ground. I told you that we should leave, but you did not listen. Eyeing Xavier's unconscious body, the doctor bent over him. She took out a rope from her pocket and prepared it to restrain Xavier. Just as she was about to tie his wrists, Xavier moved. He opened his eyes, catching the doctor off guard, and grabbed her. I did not think that you would use such cheap tricks. I'm glad I got prepared for something like this. He pushed her to the ground. She wriggled around, unable to escape his grasp. Desperately, she aimed a violent kick at him. Xavier only laughed and kicked her back. Her face turned red with pain. Xavier did not let her go. Why did you attack me? He pushed down harder. She clenched her teeth. Because I don't like you. Get off me. Xavier laughed coldly. What? You don't think I was staying so close to you to fuck you, do you? The doctor huffed. If you can handle the 50 mercenaries protecting me, you can try. Xavier's face gave no indication of how he felt. You're not really my type. Sorry. Just tell me what's below the cliff. I don't know what you're talking about, but get off me. If you won't let me go, I will scream. Once the mercenaries will see you on top of me, you won't leave the mountain range alive. She gasped for air. Then why don't you shout? I'm sure they would love to know what you were hiding as well. You can shout until your throat turns hoarse. I won't care. Xavier stayed calm. He knew an empty threat when he heard one. What are you going to do with me? The doctor struggled to breathe steadily under Xavier's weight. Just tell me what you were hiding, and I won't do anything. If you won't tell me, then I am sure you won't mind if I take a look myself. You brat. The doctor wriggled around some more. Even though she was slightly older than Xavier, she was nowhere near his level of strength, and she was painfully aware of this. Xavier was left unfazed. I have heard that there is a monster living in the mountain range called Coape. He has an interest in human women. You bastard! Her face turned white. She had heard of that sort of monster before. Let me go already, and I will tell you what is below the cliff. Xavier got off the doctor and helped her to stand up. As a precaution, he held on to her wrist, ignoring her complaints about this. They headed to the strange spot at the wall of the cliff. It is something that I found by chance while I was gathering herbs. Behind the weird-looking branches is a hidden cave. It should contain some items that were left behind. However, I did not manage to enter it, so I don't know what exactly was left behind. Judging from the clues that I found, whoever left the items behind must have been very powerful. A hidden cave? Xavier raised an eyebrow. And I take it you were trying to enter it just a moment ago, weren't you? Lau's laughter echoed through Xavier's mind. Wow, you really are giving Sherlock Holmes a run for his money. Xavier ignored him, but felt his cheeks turn hot. The doctor hastily nodded. Yes, but the cliff is too steep. I can't climb down to enter it. She thought for a moment, then glared at Xavier. You better not get any ideas about stealing all the treasure for yourself. Otherwise, I will tell the mercenaries to take you down. I might not be as strong as you are, but many of the mercenaries are above your level. It would be easy for them to shred you apart. Oh, well that's too bad. Guess I have to scratch that idea then. How about I try to go inside, and you wait here? Xavier offered, looking at the doctor as he waited for her reply. She seemed to consider it, but then shook her head. Forget about it. We have been away for too long. If we don't return, Lang will grow suspicious. Lang? That's the guy who is the son of the Wolfhand's leader, isn't it? The doctor nodded, obviously willing to talk more about him. What is your name, by the way? I don't think I have ever seen you here before. Xavier. All right, nice to meet you. The doctor gave a quick smile and hurried back to the others. Xavier looked after her until she disappeared between the trees. He turned his head and took one more glance at the cave, excitedly waving his hands. This was the sort of adventure he had been longing for. If it wouldn't have been for the doctor, he would have climbed down and grabbed all of the treasure. After laughing quietly to himself, he headed back to the group as well. He did not expect to find something on a random stroll through the woods. Lau was right. I really am lucky. By the time Xavier and the doctor returned, the mercenaries already gathered and waited. Fairy Doctor, we considered sending someone to look for you. You have been gone for so long. A figure hurried over. He abruptly stopped as he saw Xavier. Who is this young man? He is one of the new mercenaries. I ran into him on my way back. Young Master Lang, we should continue our journey. There is still a long way before we reach our destination. The doctor walked past Lang, who kept staring at her. If you say so, he replied with a smile. Right as Xavier was also about to pass, he stopped him with his hand. Hey, you. Aren't you that level 2 young master? I've heard you're quite talented. Oh, I guess I just got lucky. Xavier tried to brush it off with an awkward laugh. Would you be interested in joining the Wolfheads? Our mercenary company is always on the lookout for talented newcomers. If you do a good job, you will be treated very well, if you catch my drift. Lang winked at him. And if your life would be in any danger, we will make sure to protect you, or provide you with medicine. Xavier listened to Lang, but shook his head before Lang was able to finish his sentence. I'm not sure if I will be any good working at a company. I think I'll end up causing you more trouble than what it's worth. Lang's smile threatened to fall. He cleared his throat. Don't worry about that. If you ever change your mind, you can visit me anytime. Our company will always be open to talented people like you. Xavier gave an apologetic nod and hurried back to the front of the group. Lang gritted his teeth, staring at Xavier's back. You have some nerves rejecting my generous offer. If you dare to interrupt my plans, I'll make sure that you will be trapped within this mountain range for the rest of your short life. Xavier did not hear any of those threats. He was busy continuing his journey alongside the other mercenaries. Together, they made their way along a quieter route. They were attacked by another 2 groups of monsters, but nothing they could not deal with. Once the sun set and the sky darkened, they arrived at their destination. It was a sunken river basin, covered with all sorts of plants and grass. A flowery scent was in the air. The scent made the weary travelers feel refreshed. The doctor brushed some sweat off her forehead as she addressed the group. Everyone, let's set up camp here. Try to be careful around the plants. Damaging them could be very bad. The mercenaries were glad to get a break after a day of traveling and quickly set up their tents. Shaking his head, Xavier took another close look at the doctor. She really has an impact on these men. You gotta admit it is impressive. Xavier kept observing the fairy doctor. She gave the employees from the medicine palace orders to unearth a variety of plants. Then she roamed around on her own, seeing if she could find anything of interest. For some reason, the sunken river basin had much purer energy than the rest of the mountain range. This provided a perfect environment for a variety of plants to grow. The area was a lot larger than what Xavier expected, as he heard about it the first time. A large section of it was still unexplored. Xavier decided to do some exploring himself. It did not take him long to realize that he had no way of finding any ingredients he needed here. He returned soon after to the camp. With his current strength, wandering too far off on his own would have been a death sentence. By the time he reached the camp, most mercenaries were done setting up camp and had dinner. The doctor was standing in the middle of the camp between the tents. At her side was Lang, who followed her like a lapdog. They must have noticed Xavier looking at him, because both turned their focus on him. The 3 pairs of eyes clashed, all of them filled with different intentions. Xavier gave them a smile and a nod, before heading inside one of the large tents. Watching him disappear, Lang leaned closer to the doctor and said with a grin, "This kid seems to have a lot of potential. I think he will get far in his life, if he won't stir too much trouble." The doctor hummed, "Maybe. I will go and check on the ingredients we've gathered, and I hope I am not asking too much of you, but can you please make sure everything in the camp is in order while I'm gone?" "Of course." As soon as Lang agreed, the doctor headed to a large tent in the middle of the camp. Lang kept watching after her. As he turned his gaze away, his smile faded. The sun vanished behind the mountains. The forest was shrouded in darkness. Leaves and branches rushed in the wind, forming shadows that appeared like claws and monsters on the walls of the tents. It has become much quieter. Other than the mercenaries who were on the lookout, only the soft crackling of fire and the light rushing of the wind could be heard. Under this silence, someone opened the entrance of a tent. A small shadow snuck out and quietly escaped into the dark forest. Not long afterwards, another shadow exited from a different tent, closely following the first one. Only the distant howling of wolves echoed through the silent night, alongside the chirping of insects. In this darkness, Xavier kept his eyes on the silhouette in front of him. The graceful figure was only illuminated by dim moonlight. She, much like Xavier, was also wrapped in black clothes. Now the treasure hunt can start. The two shadows traveled far away from the camp. Xavier was glad the doctor led the way. It was hard for him to remember the way back, though he took some mental notes along the way. For example, he could recall that he had to turn right at a large boulder shaped like a head, or that there was a tree with 5 large, oddly twisted branches where he had to turn left. These things were a lot more difficult in the dark. After a few hours, they reached the cliff. There they stood under the now bright moonlight. "Should we start?" Xavier turned to the doctor. She nodded and squatted down to pick up a few pieces of dry sticks. Swiftly, she bound them together, forming 2 torches. She pulled out some powder from her pocket and sprinkled it over their tops before lighting them on fire. "Take this." She handed one torch to Xavier and reached for a long rope that she waved right in front of Xavier's face. "You won't let a small girl be the vanguard, right?" Xavier raised an eyebrow. He took the rope and carefully inspected it for any faults. He gave the doctor a suspicious look. "I think it would be better if we go down together. I can't stay calm if I have to trust someone I've known for a day." The doctor laughed. "Aren't you a man? I can't believe you." Being doubted by Xavier upset her. The mercenaries she worked with most of the time were rather outspoken and straightforward. She was not used to having someone like Xavier around. Someone that was cautious, even around a young woman that was barely a level 1 young master. "I only have this life, and won't gamble with it. Acting like a hero to impress a woman would get me killed." Xavier chuckled. "If you're not happy about this, then we don't have to go down the cliff. I'm sure I'll find some other treasure on my journey." The doctor froze. "You brat." Xavier laughed her annoyance off. "Do you want to go down or not? If we wait for much longer, it will be morning." She groaned. "Go already, you bastard." Xavier smiled. He tied the rope to a tree, pulling on it to see if it held his weight. More importantly, if it held the weight he was carrying on his back. The rope did appear to be strong enough. He let himself fall backwards, stretching his arms out. "Are you coming now or what?" The doctor shook her head quickly. "I have my own rope. I don't need your help." She stumbled a few steps backwards. "All right then, have fun going on your own. But I should warn you that there are a lot of poisonous snakes and scorpions around this time of the year, and they love to hide under the cliffs." Xavier shrugged his shoulders. "Bloody bastard." The doctor huffed and entered Xavier's embrace. "I hope you die a horrible death. If you do anything creepy, I will poison you." "Got it." Xavier sighed and lowered himself down the cliff with the doctor in his arms. The duo plunged into the pitch-black darkness beneath them. Violent gusts of wind blew into their ears. Xavier held tightly onto the doctor. Abruptly, he stopped, floating mid-air. "Can you tell where the cave is?" The doctor opened her tightly shut eyes to look around. As she saw the cliff above, she tightened her grip to Xavier. It should be there." She let go with one of her small hands, pointing into the distance. "All right, hold tight." Xavier lowered them further down the cliff. He tilted his head, seeing the entrance to the cave coming closer. "Throw the torch inside." The doctor understood and flung the torch towards it. As the torch bounced off the wall, sparks flew into every direction. With the meager light, Xavier was able to make out how far the cave was away. To his relief, they were almost there. He could not enjoy this relief for long. Suddenly, he saw something. He was about to scream. His skin crawled. Xavier pushed himself and the doctor off the wall of the cliff. "Watch out!" The doctor tightened her grip onto Xavier, burrowing her nails deep into his body. "What is going on?" "There is a cliff snake." A cliff snake, as their name implied, was a type of snake monster that lived within rocky cliffs. They were level 1 monsters. Their bodies were long and could utilize themselves to form a wing, like a falcon. Furthermore, it had a rock attribute, making its scales as hard as a rock. Ordinary weapons could not pierce it. On a good day, Xavier would already struggle if he were to fight one of them. Now, with his body being mid-air and hanging from a rope, not to mention with a scared woman in his arms, he would not stand a chance. "A cliff snake? What are we going to do now?" The doctor trembled. She was nervous enough without any monster around. Xavier narrowed his eyes. The cliff snake was flying closer. "Do you still have that powder that you used to knock me out?" She nodded and reached for her pocket. With one hand, she pulled out a small bag. "This is all I have left. Don't waste it." Xavier opened his hand. He stared at the cliff snake flying closer. "Attack it, you idiot! What are you waiting for?" Xavier remained calm. The cliff snake flapped its wings. With an ominous glint in its eyes, it dove towards Xavier. As it came closer, he could see its sharp fangs. The monster was only a few inches away from his face as he blew the dust into its eyes. With loud hissing, it tried to regain control over its body, which slowly sunk down. Suddenly, it fell out of the air. The cliff snake crashed onto the ground, somewhere within the valley deep below. From this height, it should have killed the snake. Despite the rock attribute, it was not invincible. "No idea that you were good for something aside from bullying people." The doctor teased Xavier, though she did gain a new level of respect for him after the fight with the cliff snake. Xavier did not respond. He ascended further down to a spot outside the cave. There was a small platform right before the entrance. It was hardly broad enough to let Xavier and the doctor stand on it. Once they were standing on the ground again, Xavier inspected the entrance. It was densely covered with rubble and wood. "Looks like there is more work for us." He took a deep breath and aimed his palm at the entrance. "Air palm!" A forceful gust of wind blew from his palm. It was strong enough to blow the rocks and branches into the dark cavern, clearing the entrance. Cold sweat was running down Xavier's forehead. The weight on his back suppressed more than half of his Q energy, making this an extremely demanding task. After panting for a while, Xavier walked through the entrance. The cave entrance was not very wide. At most, it could fit 3 people at once. The light of the 2 torches lit up against the rock. It had a mysterious sheen to it. The moonlight coming from outside amplified this mysteriousness. Many blade marks covered the walls. They were faint. Xavier suspected that they must have faded over the past centuries. If his vision would have been worse, he would not have noticed them at all. "We're finally here." Xavier laughed and pulled the doctor into a tighter hug. The doctor, still petrified, realized that she was still in Xavier's arms and pushed herself away. "Let's move and see what we can find. I hope all of this wasn't for nothing." Coldness and darkness engulfed the duo as they walked deeper into the mountain cave. Only their footsteps could be heard. The doctor wrapped her own arms around herself. She increased her speed to stay closer to Xavier. After saving them from the cliff snake, she felt a sense of security around him. They kept walking deeper and deeper. The cavern did not seem to end. After 10 minutes, the tense atmosphere became worse. Suddenly, Xavier stopped. "Huh?" The doctor failed to react in time and crashed into Xavier. "Why did you stop?" Xavier cleared his throat and pointed towards a rock ahead of them. "It's a dead end." The doctor inspected the rock carefully. A faint yellow light was emitting from it. Then she shook her head. "Behind this rock door should be our destination. This rock acts like a door. It was made by someone." Xavier stepped forwards and touched the rock. After estimating its thickness and strength, his shoulders dropped. It is too thick. We would need the strength of a she-master to forcefully break it. The doctor knitted her brows together. She placed her hand on the rock. Slowly, it began to move like a wheel. We don't need to break through it. I can't believe I thought you are any different from those brutish mercenaries. You can't punch your way through every obstacle you see. Didn't you see the yellow light? This is a trap technique. If you pay more attention to the details, you would realize that it isn't difficult to open at all. A trap technique? I had no idea you know about trap techniques. I've only heard a little about them, though. The only time Xavier heard about trap techniques was in the library back at his clan. There was not much mentioned. I have read some books about them. I would not say I am an expert when it comes to them, but I should find a way around it. The doctor moved her hands around the rock. There were some faint carvings. They were shaped like human figures, most likely left behind by whoever created this door in the first place. Xavier wondered when its creator was here the last time. It must have been hundreds of years ago, perhaps even thousands. Found it! The doctor's yelling caused Xavier to snap back to reality. She was on her knees, touching a protruding spot on the rock wall. As she pressed on it, a creaking sound echoed through the cave. As soon as she pressed it, the door slid upwards. She stood up and gestured towards Xavier. Go ahead. Xavier gave her a concerned look. Before moving through the gate, he kicked a few pebbles that were laying on the ground through it. He felt reassured since nothing happened. The doctor snorted. You really are paranoid. Thanks. Without adding anything else, Xavier stepped through the door, entering the deep heart of the cave. His eyes widened in shock. Beyond the rock was an enormous hall that was not as decorated as the entrance. Mounted on the walls were moonstones that functioned as a source of light. At the center of the room was a sort of throne. Seated on it was a skeleton with its skull fallen into its lap. Everything about this hall was ghastly. The doctor followed Xavier closely. In front of the throne was a long table made of black stone. 3 locked containers were placed on top of it. Xavier took a look around. In every corner were thousands upon thousands of golden coins. Between them were the occasional pieces of jewelry, or some scattered jewels. Rubies and emeralds sparkled in green and red amongst the gold. Just by the number of golden coins, the value of this room must have been within millions. Judging by the placement of the golden coins, the owner did not hold them in high regard. Xavier slowly shifted his eyes away from the shiny gold. A wide smile spread across his mouth as he saw the last corner of the cave. Within it grew numerous different flowers and plants. No wonder the air inside is so fresh. You would expect a cave like this to smell more rancid. The doctor saw the bed of herbs too. Her eyes lit up. The duo ran up to it. To an ordinary person, it might have been weird to ignore the gold and jewels for the sake of picking flowers, but to Xavier and the doctor, it was not. Both of them knew that these herbs and flowers were worth at least 10 times the amount of all the gold coins in the room combined. Purple blue leaf, white spirit fruit, snow lotus seed. She had memorized thousands of plants, so she could name all of them in an instant. Ice spirit grass. Xavier was startled hearing this term. He looked across the field of flowers, and there it was. The leaves of the plant were separated into 2 colors. Its stem was white, but covered with droplets of what appeared to be icy crystals. The reddish tips of the leaves were red like a burning flame. A faint mist surrounded the plant. This exceedingly rare ingredient was also necessary for the blood lotus essence pill. Xavier's heart leapt with joy. Seeing that Xavier recognized this plant surprised the doctor. You also recognize this plant? Hastily, Xavier nodded. I have been looking for a while for this plant. I really need it. Can't believe you would pick the most expensive plant right off the bat. What do you need it for? The doctor looked at Xavier with disdain. Xavier rubbed the back of his head and gave her an apologetic smile. It's a long story, but I really need it. Why don't we make a deal? I will get the ice spirit grass, and you get to pick 2/3 of the other herbs. I will take whatever is left in the last third. Begrudgingly, she pressed her mouth into a thin line. Looking over the field with herbs, eventually, she sighed. All right, that is fair enough. Can't say I'm happy about it, but you did help me to get here in the first place. Xavier was pleased to hear this. Without worrying about drawing suspicion, he extracted a handful of large bottles from his storage ring, alongside a shovel. He dug away the surrounding soul of the ice spirit blazing grass, and placed the plant with roots and soil into one of the large bottles. Careful not to harm any leaf, he closed the bottle and placed it back into the storage ring. Afterwards, he handed the shovel to the doctor and waited until she was done picking her ingredients. While Xavier was waiting for her, he kept checking out the rest of the room. His eyes stopped at the 3 locked containers standing in the middle of the table. He slowly walked towards them. With trembling fingers, he touched the metal lock that kept the treasure sealed away. To his surprise, the metal was warm as he touched it. How odd! This can't be any ordinary metal. I guess there is no point trying to break it by force. Shouldn't there be a key somewhere? It did not take Xavier long to find the keys. Dangling from the skeletons were 3 black keys. Xavier groaned. Hesitant to touch the old skeleton, he reached for the keys. Disgust made his skin crawl. He pulled lightly on the keys. The age of the skeleton made it fragile. Despite how careful Xavier was, the old bony arm snatched off and fell onto the ground. Xavier turned pale. Sorry. He took a bow, bent down, and reached for the arm. He grabbed the bone and lifted it as suddenly. Why is the arm so heavy? He side-eyed the doctor, who was busy digging up her herbs. Then he quickly looked at the bone. There, at the top of the arm, a piece was broken off. In it was a very small scroll, hidden away. Xavier's eyes widened. Making sure the doctor was not watching him, he let the small scroll drop into his hand and threw it into his storage ring. Afterwards, he swept the dust off the skeleton arm, placing it back into its original position. Xavier took the ancient keys to the locked chests. He touched the warm metal lock. Glancing at the doctor, he smiled and said, Hurry up and get over here. I don't need someone to accuse me of trying to pocket all the good stuff once I open these boxes. I'm glad to hear that you have some sort of conscience left. The doctor straightened up. In her arms were more than 10 large bottles. She placed them carefully onto the stone table near the chests. She selected a few and pushed them towards Xavier. These are yours. Xavier took note to inspect them later. Right now, he was not interested in them. The ice spirit blazing grass was the only ingredient he cared about, and he already had it in his storage ring. Still, he placed the bottles into his storage ring as well. Thank you. So I guess that means I can open them now. Don't tease me, open them. The doctor put her bottles on a belt around her waist. Xavier picked a random key, lifted the first lock, and inserted it. Wrong lock. Xavier sighed. He took the next key. Wrong again. Only one left. He inserted the last key into the lock, holding his breath. It was deadly silent. The only noise was the sound of the key inside the lock, slowly moving into the hole. The shackle fell off the lock. Xavier froze in shock. It's open. Then hurry up and open the chest. The doctor urged Xavier, leaning as close to the chest as she could. Xavier, even though he was not less impatient, grabbed her hand and pulled her away. Then, from a safe distance, he aimed at the chest and unleashed a blast of energy on it to lift the lid. As the lid was open and there was no reaction, Xavier smiled. It's always good to stay on guard. The doctor gave him a cold glare. If you are ever forced to live in the mountain range of monsters, you will have a happy life. Even the monsters would get annoyed by you and leave you alone. That does sound like a nice life. Xavier agreed and laughed. The doctor shook her head at this shameless man next to her. She walked towards the table, looking into the opened chest. Immediately, her annoyed expression turned into one overcome with joy. She brushed her sweaty hands dry and retrieved a rainbow-colored scroll. A poison scroll! A poison scroll? That sounds alarming. Xavier took a step back. The doctor laughed. Don't be silly. This is not alarming at all. I believe it must have been created by another physician. Many physicians focus on creating poisons to keep themselves safe, and, do other stuff as well. They are called poison masters, and sure, they are not as powerful as an alchemist would be, but still very good and efficient at their craft. My attributes do not allow me to become an alchemist, so I have to settle for second best. Eyeing the dejected-looking doctor, Xavier forced a smile. I imagine this will take a long time to master it. Don't worry, I won't try and talk you into handing it over. Training my Q energy already requires all of my focus and time. If I were to practice something like this, I would bite off more than I could chew. Thanks. This also means that you can put the other thing you were holding in your hands away. Xavier gave her a knowing smirk. Being at a loss for words, she turned red. As she unclenched her hand, there was a small bag filled with green powder. How did you know? I figured I'm not the only one being paranoid. Xavier shrugged. He then went on to the second container, opening it. What would the green powder do to me anyways? The doctor sheepishly smiled and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Oh, this was made with drunken dragon grass and some other sedative ingredients. Once breathed in, it would cause them to sleep for at least half a day. But it's not lethal or anything. Someone of your level would get over it rather quickly. Well, thank God. At least you're not that vicious. Xavier teased her, though he was unsure how much of what he said was banter, and how much of it was genuine relief. Either way, the second chest is open now. Want to take a look? The light of the moonstones reflected on the scroll inside the box. Xavier reached for it and lifted it into the air. High XX Flying D technique. Eagle Wing. His jaw dropped. For fucking real? A Flying D technique? That's insane. What's insane? And what's a Flying D technique? Now the doctor was at a loss. Since she was only a low-level young master, she did not bother to study the higher-level D techniques that she could never master. It would be a waste of time for her. As the name indicates, it's a D technique to make you fly. Xavier explained it, but his eyes kept staring at the scroll. He did not dare to look away for a split second, as if he was terrified the scroll could vanish into thin air if he would do so. But doesn't someone need to have the strength of a battle spirit to learn how to fly? Only with this level someone could use their Q combat energy to form a pair of energy wings on their back. Or at least that's what I have learned. I am not an expert when it comes to D or Q techniques. The doctor threw her hands into the air, in an apologetic manner. Xavier did not look at her as he explained. Flying it's like a dream for those who learn how to master Q combat energy and all the effects it has. Flying D techniques are rare and strange. They enable someone to grow wings on their back, even if they are not on the rank of a battle spirit. This D technique, it's like a shortcut. It is incredible. Seeing his sparkling wide eyes, the doctor laughed. I get it. You really want this scroll. That's only fair. I got the last one. Besides, I don't think I would be able to learn a D technique that is so highly advanced. Xavier was beaming. His muscles began to hurt from the constant smiling. I'm glad you're fine with that. Let's open the last one and then hurry out of here. Xavier reached for the last key and was about to put it into the keyhole of the last chest as suddenly... Someone is coming. What? The doctor tensed up. That's impossible. Only the two of us know about this place. Xavier shook his head. A sudden icy look flashed through his eyes. I did not mishear. There are quite a few people. He glared at her. The doctor took the hint. Are you implying that I have called someone? Did your paranoia finally get the better of you? Why would I do something so foolish? If I would want to get rid of you, I would have done so by now. Xavier mustered her up and down. She appeared to be honest, and he had no time to question her further. He was about to open the chest. His hands were trembling. In this state of anxiety, he dropped the key. Xavier cursed. He was about to grab the chest and go for a run, but as he was about to lift up the chest, he realized in horror that it was stuck onto the table. He smashed his fist against it in frustration. The hit did not leave a scratch. Fucking shit, they are here. The duo turned towards the door. A familiar figure entered through the door. He laughed a sinister laugh that echoed through the spacious hall. Thank you for leading the way, Doctor. It seems that the information we gathered was true. Lang. The doctor clenched her teeth together. Behind Lang stood more than 10 men, blocking the exit. Lang's face was revealed under the moonstones. A greediness grew in his eyes as they wandered over the piles of gold in the corners. He licked his lips. I am sorry. I hope I am not bothering the two of you too much. Xavier tightened his grip on the key in his hands. His expression was gloomy. Why did you follow us? Lang brushed this off. Following? I was not following you. A few days ago, I received news that the fairy doctor had found treasure in a hidden cave, and since I did not know about the exact location, I decided to keep an eye on you. That's all. How did you get this information? The only one who knew about this was my assistant, Lin Li. Anger spread across the doctor's soft face. Lang burst into laughter. That dumb woman is supposed to assist you? How so? All it took was some sweet talking, and she told me everything. I'm really sorry for ruining your plans, but you need to understand that these things are important for our company, and I need to keep my priorities straight. We need the gold and the treasure in this cave to develop our company further. The Wolfheads don't want to be stuck in this small town for another century. Now hand me the treasure, and afterwards, I will make you mine, lovely fairy doctor. Will be yours? You disgusting pig, as if I would ever be with someone like you. The doctor was infuriated at Lang's proposal. Anger sparked up in his eyes, yet he smiled as he said, That does not matter. I will keep you by my side with force if I have to. He redirected his gaze at Xavier. I already told you to join our company, but you rejected my very generous offer. Now it is too late. That's a shame, isn't it? What's so shameful about not wanting to join a mercenary company that doesn't even have a she-master? Xavier mocked the young man in front of him without holding back. To him, a company without any she-master could not afford such arrogant behavior. You're acting awfully cocky for someone that is about to die. Lang put on a menacing grin. Xavier would not admit it, but the fear in his heart grew. After calculating his chances, he realized the odds were not in his favor. At his current state, he would be able to handle a level 4 young master. If he were to remove the weight on his back, perhaps he would be able to stand his ground against the level 6 master. However, there were more than 10 mercenaries by the door. If they were to attack him with united forces, he would have had no chance. Master? Xavier shouted for Lao in his heart, but there was no response. It seemed that he was not interested in getting Xavier out of this mess. Lang crossed his arms. His sinister face stared at Xavier's changing expression, like a cat playing with a mouse. You do have potential. It's a shame that it is so underdeveloped. I hope you won't get too upset, but to avoid having you seek revenge in the future, I will kill you right here and now. I'm sure you understand. Since he was a little kid, his father had warned him to be as thorough as possible in situations like this. Offending someone and not killing them was foolish. Xavier stared at Lang. His eyes narrowed. You are right. If I get the chance to leave, I will tear your company down. Lang laughed. It is admirable that you can keep up such a strong front in such a hopeless situation. Xavier's mind was racing. He needed to come up with a plan to escape. Suddenly, someone shoved something into his hand from behind. Side-eyeing towards his left without moving his head, he noticed the fairy doctor. He did not remember her standing so close to him. She whispered as softly as she could, making sure only Xavier would hear her. This is the sedative from earlier. Xavier nodded as subtly as he could. He kept looking around the room. As he remembered the shining moonstones, an idea formed in his mind. Stay close to me. The fairy doctor nodded. Xavier was her only hope to escape safely, without ending up as Lang's wife. Lang waved to his mercenaries. Do it. Kill that bastard. Don't harm the fairy doctor. She will be my wife. The rock door was tightly blocked. 5 of the 10 mercenaries stepped forward. With fury, they attacked the duo. Xavier stretched out his hand. The strong force threw the bag of sedatives high into the air. Scattered powder flew through the hall like green snow, covering the entire hall. Lang knew what was going on. Everyone, hold your breath. Those keeping the door secured, do not move, no matter what. Lee, attack them. The disturbed mercenaries quickly regained their composure. 5 of them drew their weapons, charging at Xavier and the doctor again. Xavier grabbed the doctor with one hand. He withdrew further into the hall. Abruptly, he curled his hand, aiming at a moonstone on the wall. With a sucking force, the moonstone detached and flew into Xavier's hand. Xavier flicked his fingers, and the moonstone was put into his storage ring. With one light source removed, the hall became a lot darker. Xavier moved his right hand, sucking in the other 2 remaining moonstones. Quickly, he deposited them in the storage ring. Now the hall was pitch black. Without wasting a second, Xavier pulled the doctor around and shot towards the exit. Don't panic. Take out your fire sparks. Those in the room, do not move. The men at the door, do not move either. Keep the room closed off. They are not allowed to escape, no matter what. Kill anyone who dares to get close to the door. The fury in Lang's voice was impossible to miss. He kept his composure as well as he could. Despite everything, he was their leader and had to keep a clear head. To his luck, he was no fool and used to similar situations. Hearing their leader staying calm and collected, the mercenaries also calmed down. Quickly, they pulled out their fire sparks. Just as they were about to light them, a rushing wind swept across them. A few mercenaries were not able to react in time and were thrown heavily onto the ground. He's escaping! He's at the door! Quick, stop him! The mercenaries cried out, groaning in pain. If one would have been able to see Lang's expression, one would have seen how anger distorted his handsome face. A strong force shot towards the door. Had the first few mercenaries not reacted in time, they would have been blown aside by it. Despite their best preparation, they staggered a few steps backwards. Master Lang, they are headed towards you. Lang took a few hurried steps towards where he thought the door was. More by luck than talent, he ended up finding the door in the dark. He ran through it and took a few steps into the tunnel. He narrowed his eyes and spread his legs, blocking the narrow tunnel with his body. Then he held his hands together, and a light green Q energy flowed through them. Gradually, his hands turned into a brown wooden color. Show me how you, a level 2 young master, intend to fight me in a direct confrontation. He laughed. Lang pulled out a sword of glowing pearl and threw it forward. The faint light had a radius of about 2 or 3 feet, but it was more than enough in the narrow tunnel. Lang could make out 2 silhouettes in front of him, rushing towards him at great speed. Give up already! Seeing Xavier run towards him like a moth to an open flame, Lang burst into laughter. Low XXD technique. Strength of the woods. Xavier's skin crawled. Damn it! He cursed Lang, taking in a deep breath. There is really no way around it. His hands reached for the weight on his back, and with a cry, he lifted it off. Twirling it around, he threw it into the storage ring. With the heavy weight gone, Xavier sensed how all his Q combat energy came rushing through his body, like a river after it broke through a levee. He tightened his fists, and energy was vibrating in them. A frightening force gathered instantly. Octane blast! Xavier's arm tensed up. His muscles turned as hard as steel. Xavier pulled back his fist, aiming at Lang. Lang was prepared. His and Xavier's fists met under a thunder-like sound that echoed through the cavern. Lang's eyes widened in surprise. He did not expect someone who he thought was a level 2 young master to possess such overwhelming strength. You are not a level 2 young master, are you? Lang did not leave Xavier any time to reply before shouting, I've stopped him! Hurry! Kill him at any cost! He cannot escape alive! The strength Xavier displayed caused Lang's anxiety to grow. He realized he could not waste any time. It was difficult for him to imagine how much stronger this young man would be in a few years. If he were to escape, he could bring his promise of destroying the Wolfhead's company to fruition. Thinking about this, a spark of fear lit up in Lang's eyes. Xavier grinned with satisfaction as he saw this. Explode! A sudden force exploded within Lang's body. Several of his bones broke. His face turned white as snow. With his weakened body trembling in pain and terror, he collapsed onto the ground, vomiting blood. Xavier resisted his urge to kill him. He did not have enough time. Promptly, he pulled the doctor forwards and dragged her outside to the dangerous cliff. The mercenaries ran up to Lang. Terror was in their eyes as they saw the condition their leader was in. Some of them tried to help him. Once Lang spat out most of the blood, his coarse voice echoed through the tunnel. Idiots! Don't help me! Get this brat! Kill him! Fucking kill him already! Once we leave, send a signal to those waiting in the camp. Tell them to corner him. Another mouthful of blood was spat out at his last words. The mercenaries did as Lang ordered them to do and stormed outside. Lang pulled himself up, leaning against the cold wall of the tunnel. Fucking demon! If I ever catch you, I will make you pay for this. Xavier and the doctor almost reached the exit of the narrow tunnel. He wrapped his fist around his sleeve. Blood was leaking from it. This was the first time he had used Octane Blast with its secret power. Unfortunately, the strength he had to conjure to use it also injured him slightly, though it was nothing serious. The doctor was out of stamina as they reached the cliff. Wait, she coughed, catching her breath. I know how much Lang likes to scheme, and he is not dumb. I am sure he placed some more mercenaries at the top of the cliff. Xavier sighed. He thought as much, but hearing the doctor's confirmation made his heart sink. They could never fight another 10 or 20 mercenaries. We have to climb the rope to get up again. We can't climb the rope back up. If they would cut it above us, we would fall to our death. The fairy doctor knew all the mercenaries' tricks. Normally, they were not used against her. Do you have any idea how to escape? Or how to fight them? Xavier frowned. Ahead of him was the cliff. He was unsure how far below it reached. It must have been several hundred feet. The sky was lit with the moon and thousands of scattered stars. In any other situation, Xavier would have admired the beauty of their view. The doctor took out a short whistle from her chest pocket and placed it on her lips. As she blew, a strange sound was emitted, echoing through the sky. What are you doing? The doctor took the whistle off her lips and smiled. I'm calling my partner. Your partner? Xavier raised an eyebrow. Who is your partner? He is a level 1 blue eagle. The doctor stored the whistle away. A flying magic beast? Xavier felt the weight of the world fall off his shoulders as the fairy doctor confirmed this. I can't believe we will be saved. Honestly, inside the cave I was terrified. I did not want to make you nervous by admitting so. The doctor blushed. As someone that's always nervous even when their life is not in danger, I appreciate this. Unfortunately, there is one unopened chest that we had to leave behind. Screw the chest. I'm just glad we got to escape. There is no point in being greedy now. If we ever walk past here again, we can still get it. Xavier laughed. Man, I really hope I will come back someday. I did not consider going for revenge, but maybe I really should visit Lang and the other wolf's heads at their companies at some point. Just to say hi and ask how he recovered. A malicious spark lit up in Xavier's eyes. He then took a stealthy glance upward at the cliff. Much as the doctor predicted, he could see many figures carrying torches above. Where's that magical beast of yours? Can you tell him to hurry up? The blurry silhouette of a giant old eagle with blue-colored feathers flew nearer from beneath. Within a moment, it was flying under Xavier and the doctor. Let's jump. The doctor jumped down on the eagle's back first. Xavier did not waste any time and jumped right on the free spot of the eagle's back behind the doctor. Hurry up, baby. The eagle understood and sped up the flapping of its wings, causing loud gusts of wind. With 2 people on the back, it rose high into the sky. Above the cliff, the mercenaries saw the 2 figurines on the giant eagle that flew above them. Shoot them down! Shoot them down! Hearing the arrows from below, Xavier tensed up. He was about to deflect them, but the blue eagle shook its wings, releasing pale energy, causing the arrows to fall down to the depth below. The doctor smiled, her hair entangled into a mess, caused by the strong wind that only increased the higher they flew. We are safe now. Don't worry. Xavier tried to relax. This was hard to do. His body was aching, exhausted from the fight. He kept staring at the cave far below them. For a split second, his eyes met the eyes of Lang, who stood at the entrance to the cave, supported by one of his henchmen. They became smaller and smaller. Within a second, Xavier could hardly see them at all. The torches of the mercenaries above the cliff looked like small fiery stars in the far distance. Goosebumps spread all over his body. This was the first time he had been so high above the ground. The wind brushed the remaining cold sweat on his forehead off. Suddenly, he began to shiver. It was awfully cold. So are we going to destroy a magical ring now, or... Huh? What magical ring? Never mind. Where do you plan to go? Xavier cleared his throat. He inched a bit back, wanting to avoid the doctor's long hair getting into his mouth. I will go back to the group of the Medicine Palace. She chuckled, although Xavier could not see her face. He could imagine her smug smile as she said this. Xavier was confused for a moment. But isn't Lang going to hurt you? The doctor shook her head. Once I am with my group, he would not dare to do as much as touch me. You know what they say about barking dogs. With the reputation I have in the town of beasts, making any move against me would be a death sentence, not only because of the mercenaries. The Medicine Palace should not be underestimated when it comes to power and influence. They can easily keep up with the Wolfhead's company. On a different note, the leaders of the two other mercenary groups also owe me. There's nothing that would make me worry about my safety. But what about you? Me? I don't think I can afford such a cozy life. If Lang wants to kill me, no one would bother to step in for me. I think it would be better if I stayed out of town from now on and focus on training, at least until I can visit him and settle my debts. Xavier felt sick to his stomach. It was not the thought of revenge that caused this, but the fact that they now reached the highest point. For a moment, Xavier wondered how high this magical beast could fly. To his relief, it did not go any higher anymore, as if it could sense how uncomfortable Xavier was. You should be more cautious if you consider taking revenge. The commander of the Wolfheads is a level 2 she-master. The doctor urged him. She was familiar enough with the group to have memorized all the ranks and names. Xavier laughed. I should be more cautious? Only half an hour ago you complained that I was too cautious and called me paranoid. Look, I appreciate the heads up, but I have fought a level 2 she-master before. Xavier stretched himself. He remembered the incident that happened between him and Chief Lai Zhao. Remembering this, his mind wandered off to his clan, to Sunny and his father. With a feeling of melancholy overcoming him, Xavier wondered if they were doing well. He hoped that no other clan caused them any trouble while he was gone. He swallowed down those feelings, trying to remember how capable his father was when it came to leading their clan. They will be fine, Xavier silently reassured himself. Hearing his confidence, the doctor hummed in acknowledgement, but did not add anything else. She trusted that Xavier knew what he was doing. The exhaustion overwhelmed Xavier. As he was about to fall asleep on the eagle's back, the voice of an old man echoed through his mind. That was not too bad, you clever brat. To escape such a dangerous situation with minimal effort, without my help. Truly impressive. Minimal effort? If you call this minimal effort, I want to see what maximal effort looks like to you. Why are you only showing up now? I thought you slept through the action. You did not react as I called out for you. Lao laughed. Don't be so petty, brat. If I help you out every time, you'll end up lazy and spoiled. And I'm not your babysitter. Anyway, how did it feel like to use Octane Blast's secret potential? Xavier had to chuckle. I can't lie, it felt really great. I thought as much, came the old man's reply. Now, brat, do you want revenge? It's not like I haven't gone after revenge before. Xavier reminded Lao. Once more his mind thought about Sunny. That bastard wants me dead. How could I let him live without getting myself killed? I have to set my priorities straight. Sounds good. With this kind of determination, you are sure to get your revenge. But you have heard what the young lady said. There is at least one level 2 she-master amongst their ranks. If you want revenge, you need to advance to the first stage of she-master before risking it. That way you are guaranteed to win. Lao's encouraging words cheered Xavier up. I will keep training in the mountain range. No matter what you force me to endure, I will do it. And I will overcome everything to make sure to get rid of this piece of shit that wants me dead. Hatred filled his heart. Xavier and the doctor flew through the sky for another hour before the eagle landed on a hilltop. The camp is at the bottom of this hill. Since you said you will not come back, I will leave you here. Can you wait here until tomorrow before leaving? It would be safer if you continue by day. Sure, we may not see each other in a long time. Xavier gave her a comforting smile. With a gentle gesture, he patted on her back. The doctor reciprocated the smile. She hesitated a moment. With her small hands, she pulled out a bag of medicine, handing it to Xavier. This is not as effective as some other poisons, but it should be enough to keep you safe in an emergency. Xavier took the small bag. He was moved. A day ago, they were only strangers that met by chance. Now he felt as if he was leaving behind an old friend. He felt guilt crawling up his heart for claiming so much of the treasure that was supposed to be solely hers, for himself. He waved her goodbye as she made her way down the hill. I'm looking forward to meeting again. Once I'm back, I will destroy that lousy mercenary company for both of us. The doctor laughed as she waved back without stopping. I look forward to it. As she reached the camp, she was still smiling. The first rays of sunlight were shining on the large tents. Silently, the doctor cursed Lang in her mind. That bastard will regret trying to backstab me like that. He will learn that a woman's grudge will last for eternity. The doctor snuck into a large tent, going to bed before anyone at the camp would notice her disappearance. Her eagle flew off towards the morning sun. She was sure he would stay nearby and keep an eye out. He was a very sensitive creature that knew his master well and made sure to not leave her too far behind after facing a dangerous situation. Immediately, she fell asleep. She was exhausted as well. Usually, she was not one to climb and run around all the time. Walking through the mountain range to gather ingredients was fine, but the adrenaline of an escape and climbing a cliff did a number on her body, not to mention the fight. Unfortunately, her rest did not last long. Not even 3 hours after she fell asleep, murmuring familiar voices were to be heard outside the tent. Groggily, she forced herself out of bed and got dressed, cursing in silence. As she stumbled out of the tent, she was faced with 8 mercenaries guarding the entrance. They were busy preventing a young man from entering. Most of them looked rather annoyed, but the moment the doctor walked out of her tent, their expressions lit up, and they hastened to wish her a good morning. She chuckled as she wished them a good morning as well. Then she looked at the young man in front of her tent, speaking loudly so that all the mercenaries could hear her. "Young Master Lang, why are you trying to barge into my tent when I am asleep?" Lang turned red. The mercenaries assumed it was due to embarrassment, but the doctor could tell that it was anger that made his blood boil. He forced a half-hearted laugh. "Oh, no reason. I wanted to wake you up since it is getting late, and I thought we should continue our journey." He took a few steps closer to her and gestured to the mercenaries, urging them to step back. "I know I can't fight you here, but you are not my target. Lead me to Xavier, or I will make things difficult for you." The doctor spread out her hands in an apologetic manner. "I'm afraid you're a bit too late. He already left." "Left?" Lang's anger grew. He flexed his teeth. The doctor simply laughed. "You did not think that he would be foolish enough to return to the campsite, did you?" She sneered, looking at the mercenaries to her left and right that protected her. They would have shredded anyone that dared to touch her hair without permission into pieces. "You fucking witch!" Lang cursed. "At least the beasts in the mountain range will make sure to teach him a lesson in my stead." The doctor ignored his cursing. With a wave, she turned around. One of the members from the medicine palace approached her and took a bow. "Doctor, we are almost done gathering the needed ingredients. Should we return?" She thought for a moment. "That's fine by me. Let us go back." Suddenly, she redirected her attention over the cam and called out, "Everyone, because the Wolfhead mercenaries have been met with some issues, I want everyone else to make sure to stick close to me on our trip back. Would this be possible?" The mercenaries were shocked. All of them dropped any task they were originally doing and rushed to aid the fairy doctor. Lang watched the commotion. His mouth twitched. Seeing the fairy doctor making sure to be guarded against him infuriated him. The fairy doctor turned towards Lang. "Young Master Lang, Xavier did tell me to leave a message before he left." "As long as he hands over all the treasure he obtained in the cave, I could let go of the fact that he injured me," Lang sneered. He only said so because he remembered Xavier's strength. Part of him was terrified of having to fight him again, any time in the future. The fairy doctor laughed. "I don't think that is up to you anymore. The message he wanted me to leave you was to assure you he will be back." Lang's body tensed. He lowered his brows. "Good. As long as he is able to survive in the mountain range of monsters, I will await his vengeance." Lang waved his men to follow him and walked off. The doctor brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear while she watched Lang walk away. Afterwards, she lifted her head, looking at the tall mountain peaks that were looming above the high trees of the forest. "I hope you know what you're doing." On his way to the mountain peak stood Xavier. He stared down at the small dots walking away from the camp, far, far away. "Son of a bitch! I won't forget what he did to me. I'll make sure to repay him." Taking a deep breath, he continued his journey with the weight of the monument on his back. Not once did he look back. He knew that the difficult part of the journey had just begun. This way he traveled on his own for 2 days. On the second day, he found himself hiding in the grass. The dried leaves atop his back allowed him to stay safely hidden. making great efforts to suppress his breathing. His body was barely moving. He was hidden beneath the grass and leaves like a moss-covered rock. Judging by speed and map, he should now be in the middle of the mountain range. During the last 2 days, Xavier had continuously searched for a safe training location, at Lau's request, but he had yet to find one. All he could do was roam around and continue to face the dangers of the mountain range, like the one that was right in front of him. This time, it was a giant red wolf. It was large enough that several people would have been able to comfortably sit on it. This beast was called Firewolf. The one in front of Xavier was fully grown. Its strength was comparable to one of a level 6 young master. Xavier had met one of those beasts before in the last 2 days. Due to the restrictions of the heavy weight he was carrying, he was forced to flee, but this only caused his bloodlust to grow. He wanted to kill this monster this time. With a finger lightly touching the ground, Xavier focused on the monster. The firewolf did not sense Xavier, who looked and smelled like part of the forest after his journey. He tensed up his muscles, preparing himself for the jump. Then, like a drawn bow, he shot out from the leaves. Like a flash of lightning, he rushed towards the wolf. Violent Q energy gathered around his fist. Octane Blast! The giant wolf was swept off the ground. Its body flew 50 feet through the air before smashing into a tree trunk. Its stiff legs tried to stand up, but it failed. The eyes of the beast rolled into its back. Xavier let out a long sigh as he relaxed. Having stayed in a creeping position for a long time, his arms and legs had become numb. Stretching himself, he walked up to the beast and drew a small dagger from his waist, cutting the wolf open. Suddenly, in the middle of the beast's chest, he saw something glowing. A monster heart? Xavier's eyes widened in surprise as he saw the crystal-like core of the beast. I can't believe I found a monster heart. It's only been 2 days. Man, that's awesome. Xavier removed the heart and disposed of the monster's remains. Once he stored the heart safely away, he made his way further. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the faint sound of rushing water, which piqued his interest. Nimbly walking through the thicket of the forest, Xavier did not have to travel far. After a few minutes, the dense trees stopped, making space for a wide river. Above him, the clear blue sky. And there, at the end of the river, was a waterfall. The water from it was clear and bright. On the bottom, the water created a layer of vapor. Birds were singing, and deer were grassing. It was a beautiful scene. Xavier had to stop and take it all in. He came out of the forest and looked around, making sure to keep his guard up. A beautiful place like this attracted all sorts of other visitors. Magical beasts would have enjoyed the clean water, not to mention the deer. After looking around for a while, Xavier could not see any monster that would have caused him any harm, though he refused to let his guard down once it looked safe. He knew that those monsters were fast and could ambush him in seconds. Xavier walked closer to the waterfall to inspect it. A few feet above the ground, to the waterfall's left and right side, were 2 naturally created caves. They were not too large nor too small. Xavier could have easily blocked the entrance with rocks and branches from the inside, not having to worry about being disturbed by any monster. Looks like I have finally found the best training spot.